Hello everybody and welcome back to What Does Jesus Teach? This will be part 2 in the series of the End Times and Revelation, and today we're going to be focusing on Daniel's 70th week. So if you already know what Daniel's 70th week is, then listen through, that's fine. You probably may not hear anything brand new, but just in case, stick with us anyway, just in case I say something on the side. If you have no idea, then this will be really important because it really does pertain to the end times. Okay. So now we're going to look at the 7th week, and this is the same as what you might hear a lot of people say, the 7 years of the end times. Now we're going to look at scriptural prophecy, and this is going to give us a basic understanding of where in the Bible we get that the end times will be 7 years long. Like, where does that frame of reference come from? Now, there is more detail than what we're going to cover today, but we're just going to focus on the major points because this could get very, very lengthy. And the first slide you're about to see next is going to seem like a lot, but it's really just 4 verses actually, but you'll see when we get to it. Okay, the main part of where this comes from is found in the book of Daniel, chapter 9, verses 24 through 27. I'm going to read this. You're welcome to pause it and read through it a couple times. And let me jump in. It says, 70 weeks have been decreed for your people in your holy city, to finish the transgression, to make an end of sin, to make atonement for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal a vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy place. So you are to know and discern that from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. It will be built again with plaza and moat, even in times of distress. Then, after the 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off and have nothing, and the people of the Prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, and its end will come with the flood. Even to the end there will be war. Desolations are determined. And he will make a firm covenant with the many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week he will put a stop to sacrifice and grain offering, and on the wing of abominations will come one who makes desolate, even until a complete destruction, one that is decreed, is poured out on the one who makes desolate. Okay, that was a lot of information. So I'm going to go to the next slide, which kind of has a little bit of a visual / chart and highlighting a couple parts of the verses. And I've also color coded the chart. So if you were to, on the video, go kind of back and forth in the video, you'll see the color coding in the text that you're seeing now. And when you look at the chart on the next one, the color coding matches the timeline that I'm about to bring up. So again, if you feel free to pause for a second, read it again, and now we're going to go to the visual. Okay, so the very first part at the top is understanding, because it's talking about, again, there's this whole thing about weeks, 62 weeks, 7 weeks in the week, what's it? Is this literal weeks? Well, and again, what I'm about to cover right now, all 4 futures views, generally speaking, are in full agreement. So this is not a so I'm not going to go into like why this is right versus wrong. Generally, just about everybody I've come in contact with that believes these, and books that I've read and so on, they all agree with this part. So I'll kind of speak to it in that way. But just for understanding, the word for weeks or week in the Hebrew is Shavua. Again, I'm not a Hebrew major, but after doing some research, it can mean 7 days or a period of 7 years. All right, so why do we believe that it's 7 years and not 7 days? Well, it's because that decree that it talks about, to rebuild Jerusalem and the temple, was given at about 457 BC. And you can see in Ezra chapter 7, 11 to 28. Now, if it had been 70 weeks or 7 days, that would mean the part about the Messiah, where it says Jesus came, would have happened at 456 BC. So you could say then we would be at the year 2400 right now, if you want to look at it that way. But yeah, so obviously that means that Jesus would have came 400 years before history records that Jesus came. So just a simple look at history makes that one a little simple. Okay. Now, the 70 years in purple here is equated, when you add them all up, it's a total of 490 years. All right. Now, verse 24, which I have here in the blue, it talks about, 70 weeks have been decreed for your people, okay? So we have a full 70-week period, or, 490 years, right? It says, from the issuing of a decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem, okay? So that took about close to 50 years to be done. So that's 7 weeks, right? Because it says, I'm sorry, I skipped ahead. Until Messiah the Prince, there will be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. So we see 7 weeks broken from the 62 other weeks. So we have the 7 weeks in yellow, that's the rebuilding process, and then the 62 additional weeks. But that actually equals 69 weeks, not 70. And, okay. Now it says afterwards, it will be built again with plaza mode even in times of distress. Now, I'm going to kind of read it, and you'll see that's over here at the end, this 1 week period. So there's going to be building of the temple at a certain period of time. And then it says after the 62 weeks, the one in the green, the Messiah will be cut off. What does that mean? Well, that means, first of all, that the Messiah popped in somewhere around that 62-week period. And of course, he died for our sins, rose again, and is in heaven until he comes back down for us. So he's currently cut off in the context of this, in the context of this passage. All right, and then obviously because we know he's not physically here, he's going to come back down for us. And then verse 26, second part until 27, it says, the prince who is to come will destroy the city and the sanctuary, and he will make a firm covenant with the many for a week, but in the middle of the week, he's going to go break that covenant and so on. I mean, again, you can read it, we just read it a minute ago. So all this is saying that there was 49 years to rebuild the temple after its destruction, when that decree was made. Then they've lived for the 62 weeks or 434 years. Jesus pops in there somewhere. He dies, goes back, rises again, goes back to heaven. And then it's kind of like it's like a stop. And so what we're waiting for is this last 7-year period. That 70th week that has yet to happen, because the Messiah cuts off after the 7 and 62 weeks. So the last week, week number 70, right? And this is where he says he makes a firm covenant with many for 1 week. So this is the last week here. Okay. Again, feel free to pause and go back and forth a little bit, but I just want to give you as best visual representation without getting into some really fancy video programming that I do not know how to do. As you guys know, I keep it very as simple as I can. And this is a little complex, but I tried to color code so you can see where each part goes. All right. So that's it for the Daniel 70th week. There's more that Daniel talks about, but I thought it was important to really kind of stop and walk through at least this basic part, where this is really the main part, because this is going to be referred to later on when we get to the book of Revelation. But this at least gives you the framework of, what the 7-year period is, where it came from in Scripture. Jesus talked about it, Paul talks about it, it's just Revelation talked about it and so on. So I want to make sure that you at least have that context of where it comes from before we continue. That was important. With that said, God bless you, and I will see you on the next section.